we'll be talking about the Hall of Mirrors. We're all worshipping at the altar of ourselves, a temple we've dedicated to our names. In an age where Eastern wisdom trends on every social platform, we've somehow managed to become more self-obsessed than ever. The irony would be delicious if it wasn't so concerning. I look at Instagram influencers, a cascade of carefully crafted moments that make them look beautiful, desirable, attractive, and cool. Yet, I've met some of them in person. They're beautiful, they're attractive, sure, but they're also wonderfully, messily human. They're also just really normal, just like the rest of us. Although some of them have this obsession with molding their real selves into their digital selves, somehow these people feel like they've lost contradictions and imperfections that make them human, and they've just totally obsessed with being seen as perfect. This self-obsessive tendency spreads everywhere in our society, and human beings are creatures that imitate each other, so clearly we're naturally following along. The obsession with our own images seems to now have become a new religion. It's as if the tyranny of our micromanaged selves carries the scent of bad breath and outdated morals. We've become victims of our own success, forgetting the imperfect beings we once were who made that success happen. Right now, we don't just see ourselves as the most important person in our universe, we see ourselves as the only person in our universe. Now, this obsession didn't emerge overnight. We've transitioned from religious perfectionism, where one strove to be perfect before God, do rituals perfectly, to have some sort of secular perfectionism, and now we strive to be perfect before the algorithm. The Protestant work ethic that once promised salvation through labor, through our work, has now evolved into a digital work ethic that promises salvation through visible achievement and optimization. In the West, people used to go to a confessional to unburden themselves and feel forgiven. Now, we all post Instagram stories hoping for likes that make us feel seen and approved of. What we're doing with social media reminds me of what happens when babies first see themselves in the mirror. This is a concept of Jacques Lacan that is called the mirror stage. And it's very easy to understand. Imagine a baby seeing themselves in a mirror for the first time. They're delighted, but they're also curious. They think, hey, that's me. But there's something strange happening. The baby in the mirror looks more coordinated and more whole than the baby feels inside, because of course the baby just sees the outer image of itself. This creates both joy and a strange feeling of messiness inside, as if on the inside I'm not perfect, but on the outside I seem to look perfect. Lacan says that the baby falls in love with this image that seems more complex than their lived experience. Now, social media seems to be creating the same effect, or almost as if it's capitalizing on this effect that already exists within us. We see profiles and think, hey, that's me. But this digital reflection appears more coherent and more perfect than we feel inside. Like that baby, we fall in love with this idealized image and spend our lives trying to become it, never quite succeeding because it was never quite real to begin with. Consider what happens when you walk into a hall of mirrors. Each reflection appears slightly different. Some taller, some shorter, some wider, some thinner. You know none of these reflections is perfectly accurate. You know none of these reflections is you. Yet, you can't help wondering which one comes closest to how others see you. Now imagine living your entire life in this hall of mirrors, constantly comparing yourself not just to others, but to countless versions of yourself. Sadly, that seems very much like our digital reality right now. This new religion operates through a digital realm where exposure becomes sacred and privacy is profane. In our society, your value is not measured by your inner worth, but by your visibility, by the degree to which one can be seen, liked, and followed. The digital age has transformed the traditional religious impulse into a compulsive need for self-display. Now, I'm not alone in this. Philosopher Slavoj Žižek talks about something called interpassivity, which simply means we let our online profiles do the enjoying for us. Think about it. We take photos of fun experiences, often instead of fully experiencing them. Our online selves are having a good time while our real selves are busy documenting it. We become audience members to our own performed lives. How have we lost the ability to perceive the viewpoints and needs of others? How have we become so mindlessly absorbed in the only viewpoint available to us? Are we simply sightseeing in our landscape alone? Are we truly the God whose temple we're worshipping at? Some philosophers actually call this spiritual capitalism. It's when working on yourself isn't just something you might want to do, but something you have to do. It's not just enough to succeed at your job anymore. You need to be constantly upgrading your entire self, like you're a smartphone needing the latest update. I believe many in Gen Z and the younger generations face this pressure intensely. They've grown up entirely in this digital environment. Some respond by embracing the game with self-awareness, creating ironic content that simultaneously criticizes and participates in these norms. Others oscillate between rejection and compliance, and some even have reverted back into traditionalism as a way to keep themselves safe. There are people also using platforms like Instagram for perfectly curated content while using platforms like Be Real or private Finstas for more authentic sharing. I learned this recently that Finsta is short for Finstagram or a fake Instagram, which refers to an account that's made by a user where they can post images and interact with other accounts in a much more private way. Usually they reserve the account's followers to close friends. And let's be clear here, it's not that they've simply forgotten that they're playing a game. Many people are playing multiple games at once with varying levels of sincerity. Then we end up in this weird situation where we totally know what we're doing is fake, but we keep doing it anyway. It's like knowing fast food is bad for you, but you go to your favorite fast food place 2, 3 times a week. Now, the young generation's relationship with social media perfectly shows this, that they're often the first to criticize its artificiality, to mock its conventions, to expose its fraudulent nature, yet they continue to participate in it with increasing intensity. We used to try and discover who we really are. Now we're focused on creating who we want to be seen as. We've taken fake it to make it a bit too far. And we're performing for an audience that's become so much part of our thinking that we don't even realize it's there anymore. At first, pretending to be perfect protects us from feeling like failures. But over time, the act starts to feel more real than who we actually are. We kind of lose touch with why we started. It's like wearing a mask so long that you forgot your own face. And then we're just trapped in a situation where we know the game is fake. And it doesn't free us from playing the game, but rather it makes us play the game more perfectly. It's crazy, right? Now, what makes this so tricky is also that while we're sharing more than ever online, we actually end up feeling more and more alone. We put everything out there. There's no secrets, there's no shadows, yet somehow we're more disconnected from each other. This need for transparency doesn't just affect what we share, it really just reshapes our experience of ourselves. The younger generation, I believe, has almost internalized this because it's not just a mask they put on anymore. It's actually becoming who they are. Our parents had real problems to fix, like getting clean water or decent housing. We're living in the comfortable world they built for us. Back then, everyone wanted to upgrade their living situation because imperfection and struggle were everywhere. These challenges provided motivation for society and individuals to work and make improvements. But look at our world now. There's little visible struggle. Society appears fully upgraded. This idea that we're always moving forward is kind of falling apart. Consider your grandparents' youth. They likely describe a time where every improvement was tangible, like getting running water, building the first community center, having the first TV in the village, paving dirt roads. Their motivation was clear. They wanted to make life more livable. But what happens when the roads are paved? What happens when every house has a TV? What happens when buildings are built and all the infrastructure is in place? What happens when convenience has become so convenient that we can order anything to our doorsteps with a few taps on a screen? And we can have that delivered in 10 minutes. Back then, people came together to fix obvious problems, build a road, install electricity, etc. Now, those clear challenges are gone, and we've turned our fixing energy towards ourselves instead. We try to upgrade ourselves with the same determination that our grandparents used to upgrade their neighborhoods. But there's a crucial difference. A neighborhood without proper roads has a clear solution. A soul feeling empty in a world of plenty, that's a much trickier problem to solve. Our grandparents could see the problems they needed to fix. Dirty water needed to become clean water. Simple. But today, what are we fixing exactly? The problems are invisible, internal. We've stopped building communities altogether. And this obsession with building ourselves is driving us crazy. We're building personal brands by ourselves. There's no end point to this project. There's no moment where we can step back and say, yes, this is good enough. The motivation isn't there anymore, but the demands on the younger generation still are. So what are they supposed to improve? What are they supposed to upgrade? What are they supposed to perfect? Well, of course they have to perfect themselves, right? It's the only thing it's the only thing in their environment that still appears imperfect. But here's the problem. We can't remake ourselves while we're still being ourselves. It's like trying to rebuild a boat while you're sailing on it. Some parts just can't be reached without sinking the boat, or turning it upside down, or bringing it back to the port in a closed-off workshop. For example, we're using meditation as a practice to perfect ourselves when meditation was meant to dissolve the self. We're missing the entire point. This endless self-improvement chase is pointless, and many young people know it. But they're stuck. Everyone around them, friends, relatives, teachers, keeps expecting perfection, so the pressure never stops. They put on a perfect face, and somehow over time, they might just end up falling in love with this mask. Wanting to grow and improve is natural and healthy. We need it, but there's a big difference between natural growth and this never-ending improvement treadmill our economy is pushing on us. When we can't stop trying to upgrade ourselves, it becomes unhealthy, like an addiction. We start loving our idealized version, and it's not really who we are. We don't love our imperfect, trauma-ridden, insecure self. That self needs to be hidden away from the world. It's also a self that we're desperately trying to escape from. We start believing falsely that if we keep up this charade of progress and perfection, we'll somehow become a person we can finally love. We'll have no flaws, no traumas, nothing wrong with us. We'll become the living embodiment of the Instagram influencer image. Yes. But we've turned growth into a solo sport when it used to be a team effort. And instead of communities coming together to build something, now we sit alone with our self-help books, trying to fix ourselves by ourselves. And in all this, the irony is that while trying to make ourselves perfect, we've actually damaged the relationships that gave our lives meaning. We don't even need to enjoy our lives anymore. We just need to look like we're enjoying them for others to see. And the weird thing is, we think we're chasing happiness, but we've actually handed the job of experiencing it over to our social media profiles. Today's marketing tells us just be yourself, but then shows us exactly which self to be. It's a clever trap. The harder we try to express our uniqueness, the more we end up following someone else's blueprint for being unique. We're not breaking any molds by doing this. We're just buying new ones with better marketing. Think about it really. If you were totally happy with yourself, would you buy all those products promising to make you better? Of course not. That's why ads need to keep you feeling not quite good enough. Companies have brilliantly shifted from selling products that solved external problems to products that promise to fix internal deficiencies, many of which they've convinced us we have. Self-optimization becomes an endless treadmill where the finish line keeps moving. You're never quite there, never quite enough. And that's precisely the point. Your perpetual dissatisfaction is incredibly profitable. In today's age, authenticity itself has become a brand, where being quote-unquote real on social media requires careful curation. Being seen means conforming to algorithms to spread your content, where even our rebellions against the systems are packaged and sold back to us. Now, tech companies are not innocent bystanders here. It's not just like, oh, we created this system. Oh, it's exploiting you. Oh, we didn't really think that through. It's not true. They've deliberately designed their apps to hook us where we're most vulnerable, like casino slot machines for our emotions. The infinite scroll, the like button, the fleeting satisfaction of notifications, these are carefully designed features that keep us craving validation and coming back for more. These companies employ teams of psychologists and data scientists whose job it is to maximize your engagement, regardless of how it makes you feel. They've created digital environments that simultaneously trigger our insecurities and offer temporary relief from them. And thus, they've created the perfect conditions for addiction to their platforms. Zizek would say they know very well what they're doing, but still they are doing it. And in all this, what social media seems to give us is an escape from our isolation and loneliness. But what appears as an escape are just new forms of ideology. While being self-exploiting practices, they also help us to better cope with our alienation rather than addressing our root causes. Let me put it simply. These things we do to feel less alone are just band-aids. They help us cope with feeling disconnected, but they don't fix why we feel like that in the first place. And in the end, nobody wins this game. We all feel like failures because we can't accept ourselves as we actually are. Have you seen a perfect flower in nature? Of course not. Yet each one is beautiful and perfect in its own ways. Nature, with its imperfections, is the perfect image of living in the natural world. Nothing in nature is envious of the other, but we are, driven by the envy that we casually call desire. We're fighting ourselves to become anything other than ourselves. So, after having said all this, how do we actually start embracing our imperfections? Now, easier said than done. It might involve a little rebellion, but not on the outside, inside ourselves. There is a demand we've internalized, a voice we've been programmed to obey. We have to fight that. When the world tells you to be a certain way, remember you can simply say, thanks, but no thanks. You always have that choice. You do. And that's the only way change will happen. Otherwise, this sickness will simply take another form in the coming generations. What might this internal rebellion look like in practice? It could start with simple, small acts of digital disobedience. Perhaps it could be posting a photo you love, regardless of how likable it may be. It may be that you set aside periods of your day that remain undocumented, sacred moments that exist only for you. It could be practicing what I call conscious imperfection, deliberately leaving something unoptimized and imperfect in your life, as a reminder that your worth isn't tied to perfection. And most importantly, it involves questioning that internal voice whenever it says you're not good enough and asking, whose standards are you really measuring yourself against? Personally, I've started to be more strict with my social media use because I realized that these images remain in my head and they start determining in very strange ways how I see the world. Aside from the fact that too much social media use is causing me a lack of focus, which I will cover in another episode, it's just not healthy. Zizek suggests we need to do more than just recognize the cage we've built for ourselves. We need to actually walk through the painful process of dismantling it. It's like you know you're in a bad relationship. You know it's unhealthy, and instead of doing the difficult part of leaving it, you just decide to stay in it. Simply knowing the problem doesn't really free us from it. We have to actively dismantle the structures that keep us trapped. Breaking free from these expectations hurts, but staying trapped in the fantasy of perfection hurts even more. True rebellion isn't crafting some perfect version of yourself, it's accepting there is no perfect version. This may be the most radical act we have in our transparency society. Not the endless pursuit of self-improvement, but the courage to embrace our imperfections, our incompleteness. We're not a finished product, and we might never be one. We should start embracing our works in progress nature and move forward this way. To find freedom not in our reflection, but in the spaces between reflections, in the shadows our society so desperately tries to eliminate. It's not about choosing being perfect or imperfect. It's about having the courage to walk away from the mirror completely and live without constantly checking our reflection. So here we are, facing a choice. Do we keep chasing an impossible perfect image? Or do we choose actual health? Real health isn't about looking flawless. It's about accepting all the parts of who we are, even the messy bits we'd rather filter out. Health isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. It's about embracing both the light and shadow of who we are. The parts that look good on Instagram and the parts that would never make it past our own filters. I did an episode about dancing with your devil earlier, which explores the theme of light and shadow. Be sure to check that out too. And as a final note, I will ask you, as the future beckons and as time moves on, what will you choose? What will it be? Will it be the familiar pain of chasing perfection, or the scary freedom of just being our messy, imperfect selves? I thank you all for listening. This is Anu, and until next time.